Hello Saber fans, Sunrider here. In this movie I'm going to give you a rundown of all the components that I used to put together the Praxis Saber here. I'm going to start at this end here, and that's there's a little momentary switch there that turns on the PC. It's like a primary power switch right there. Above that little switch there's a 2-speaker module here with the bigger speaker pointing toward the inside to give the lower tones some resonance, and a little speaker pointing out here and the PC sensors are all remotely located in that area with the little speakers there, so I could get the PC to fit in here. In this next section I've got a 4-inch double female MHS part with 2 channels dremeled into it, so I can fit 2 18-fit 650s side by side. Here's the other part like this for the sister Saber, this run kind of thing. There's just a channel that's 18 millimeters, in diameter on each side, dremeled out, so I can fit 2 18 650s in here, so I can get enough battery power in this thing. And on each side of the 18 650s I've got boards. The protection PCB is on one side here, and on top of that there's 3 pole boards that control the switching for the Saber. And on the other side of the batteries I've got the Petite Crouton down here with all the higher profile parts removed and mounted externally in other places in the Saber, so I can make that fit on top of those batteries kind of thing. And next up here I've got the big connector that connects the 2 halves of the Saber basically, and it's the other side of this connector mounted to another PCB like this that's secured in a tube and held down with some Allen studs in there. And since the battery setup is built into the section there to assemble the Saber, the crystal chamber here has to slide in and plug into the rest of the Saber inside there. And so above the battery section, connector section, there's the lower half of the crystal chamber chassis here, which has a bunch of components on it. Here's 2 RGB LEDs and 1 blue LED in the middle. Originally designed to set up for a CF5 to make use of the 7 LED outputs and to save space. I've got them packed in here all tight, and I thought it'd make a kind of neat little light show too when the different colors are mixing and stuff. Also here there's a little brass switch I filed down. This and the auxiliary switch are similar. It looks like brass bar stock that's been filed down, kind of like a pyramid shape, so it can be held from the back side and not go anywhere kind of thing. Behind that big switch is 2 smaller switches, 2 really small switches. And I had to use 2 switches and 1 for the ignition switch here, because the pole board has a floating type switch and the PC has a grounded type switch. Here is a 1.3 millimeter recharge port, and these are all kind of like mounted in a double male spacer type of thing that connects this 4-inch part to this I think it's a 5-inch part here. It's a 5-inch part. And above those parts there's Like on this one, there's a 5-volt regulator here, board, which powers up the lasers, constant current supply board, and the fan that's up here in this section. Of course, the laser's in there that shines up from this end kind of thing through this crystal here. And in this one there's also some accent LEDs and a little board that has some resistors on it for that and stuff in there too. A little bit of junk in there. And above that, of course, is the crystal chamber here. It took me quite a while to get this one done. This is a little bit more complicated than the first design. Put a little bit more detail into it. This crystal chamber has a lot more detail all the way around, and it's got a blue topaz on this end, back in here, underneath that lens, and the 2 big quartz crystals you can see pretty easily there. And above the crystals there's the auxiliary switch here, which can handle all those effects. And above that is the 6 amp driver. 6 amp driver's got a switch on it to go from 3 to 6 amps kind of thing. That's underneath this screw here. And above the 6 amp driver is the fan. And the fan basically sucks air in from this section here, blows it out these holes here. And above the fan I've got the big heat sink. Here's the green version kind of thing. It's just a heat sink with fins that I've soldered pretty good to a milled down MHS copper wafer kind of thing there. Above that there's a pretty good focusing lens that's been glued into the blade holder up here. Kind of trimmed out the blade holder a little bit to where that lens could drop in there and be glued to it, and it's floating like right above the LED dome there kind of thing. Looks pretty good. And as far as the outside of the saber is concerned, I just got a bunch of basic solid brass rings here. Took them to the Dremel and flattened out the inside of them so that they kind of slide over the outside of the MHS parts. And I engraved 2 of them here. Also, I made a belt loop here on this one. Seemed like a good way to stick a little belt loop on there and not take up much space and change anything. And I also engraved these little screws here. This one you take out to rotate the chamber around so the door moves around. Kind of wanted to have this like kind of want to always be able to see this crystal chamber, and this seemed like a kind of good way to do it, where you can see through there pretty good, but you can't really get anything through there very easily to destroy anything in there kind of thing. And it seems to work pretty good. And that's about it for all the major details. Thanks for looking.